friends and families couldn't find decent priced vendors in the Indianapolis market. And the reality is who's suffering at that point is the resident.
It's a lot of friction.
A lot of friction. Impossible to buy. We're doing acquisitions, renovations, all the way through the lease up and then renting it out as well. So what I did for the whole entire time was operations, mainly on the maintenance and the CapEx reno, side of the business as well. Dabbled in turnovers for several years, but so where everything kind of took a turn for me on the construction piece was I've been working in construction. I grew up farming in northern Indiana. Construction's a passion of mine. But I started to see kind of post 22, rates started going down. I seen kind of a shift in the clients, right, and what they wanted. It was a bottom line look rather than the bigger picture. Everybody wants heads and beds. That's really what it comes down to. You need to rent your property out, right? You need to start generating some income. But there's certain ways to not do it, which is cutting corners to shave off OpEx, which is what they wanted to do tenfold. And I get it. It was tough because they were buying heavy. They were buying, 1 week we did, I think 210 acquisitions for them across the country for one of these clients in like 19 or 2020, something like that. To now it's like impossible to buy, right?
Impossible to buy just in that buy box that they were trying to be in.
Correct.
Yeah.
It was, kind of post 22, it was just, we started seeing it at the end of 21, but then, spring and summer 22 was like, hey, we're got a ton of cash, but we're not going to buy anymore. It just doesn't make sense. Which was tough, and that's where we had to kind of change our entire model up.
Interesting.
But that's where, that was the writing on the wall, for me initially was, again, Indiana, small town guy, I like to look out for my neighbor, look out for the community. That's been kind of my passion my whole life. So now it's like, we need to do whatever we can do to get this heater up and running. It's negative 10 degrees in January, but we just can't afford to replace it, and it's like, those were the conversations I hated to have, right?
They were just trying to, what do you call that? Trying to squeeze, get a drop of water from a dry well, basically. Yeah.
Blood from a turnip, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
And the reality is who's suffering at that point is the resident, right? And we had obviously talk to that resident, sometimes talk to legal side of things, talk to municipalities, talk to courts because it's like, hey, we're holding their money for X, Y, Z reasons. And times out by 8,000 properties, and it's a challenge, right? When you're talking about other markets, you're talking about everything, involved with that, but
it's a lot of friction.
A lot of friction. And, it had only gotten worse in my last, 18 to 24 months, in that space. And that's where really started 23, middle of 23 is where I started to decide, hey, I want to possibly get in the construction game. I've been wanting to do it for a while. And I've been helping out, again, like I said, family, friends out, with loose end projects. Yeah. And then, so I decided about 12, 14 months ago that I want to, go head first into this thing in 2025. And that's what I did April 1st this year.
Was there ever a question about whether or not you're going to go join a company or start your own? Was it, I want to go do my own thing and build something for myself?
You two know firsthand property management's tough, and that's where for me it was like, I have a ton of knowledge in it, but at the same time I have pretty good amount of knowledge in construction as well. And it kind of leads to how this whole thing started up, which is, in those early 2013 to 2017 days of this, organic, and we had maybe 8-9 markets at that time. We had a bunch of companies similar to mine, that are, I kind of call it a handyman plus, type of scenario. And, and that was great. You can call them, you can call the owner, you're in good working order, you get something solved the same day. Right. And then it started becoming an issue in like I said, about 23 or so, where friends and families couldn't find, decent priced, vendors in the Indianapolis market. Yeah. Right. They were just like, hey, I'm getting this bid from Angie's List or from this, that, or another, and it's this contractor's great, communication's great, but should it cost me, $6,000 to replace, my bathtub? And it's like, certainly not, and there's got to be kind of a rub there and a give. And that's where, I kind of got this thing up and running. Had talked about it pretty heavily, obviously with the wife and kind of what that looks like. And we decided that this is probably the next best step for us. And it's been semi-truck going 100 miles per hour down the road ever since, but it's been fun.
I can relate to that, going jumping in kind of with both feet into entrepreneurship. It can be kind of a lonely thing where, there's all right, it's just up to me, but it's also, I think it's one of the most exciting things too, to just see what you can build and see if you can make it sustainable. I wanted to ask you, as you were talking about kind of your experience with that transition, in that kind of national property management context, when you saw that shift start to happen, was part of the inspiration to go into the renovation side of things because you saw like, these are the guys who are always going to be needed, right? Like it's like homes always need to be repaired, kept. It doesn't matter if investors are acquiring more or trying to scale their portfolio. It's what we have always needs to be maintained. And I kind of felt this as an agent back when rates started to go up in 2022 and 23. I remember kind of thinking like, well, it's kind of a hard time right now to be an agent because transaction volume's low. Yep. Nobody wants to list their house for sale because they have a 2 or 3% rate. And nobody wants to buy a house because the rate they're looking at is 5 to 7%, wherever we were at that point.
Sure.
And, but then I'm like, so then what are people doing instead? Like, well, they're doing additions, they're doing renovations, they're making what they have work for them today. Sure. Did you kind of see, like any of that, or was that, or did that just happen to be kind of like a coincidence? Like,
it was. She's talking about like with me personally, or through my old company that I was with.
I guess like and your what you were exposed to at your old company. Did you? Yeah. You said you kind of saw the writing on the wall. I know you were talking more about like the pressure that was starting to happen in the management, like investment side of things, but. Sure. Did you see any of that sort of upside to getting into construction at the time?
Yeah.
Because you're like, well,
I have a great mentor of mine. Been working with him 3 different markets. He became a national himself and ended up selling his company off in 23 for larger sum of money, we'll say. I've really been talking with him about what his insights and thoughts and everything else. And he said, make sure that your community is kind of maintained and is good to go before you ever think about branching out. He was a Nashville guy, did that, got really big, really could make sense a majority of the Nashville. I'm doing the same thing here, right? Thinking now I probably won't ever go outside of Central Indiana. That could change in a year or two from now because there is so much work like you're asking, right? My first job was to walk a basement in my last 2 weeks at my old company, right? My neighbors like, hey, can you walk this basement? Give me a kind of rough estimate. We're looking at doing a HELOC. Looking at doing some work here. Older couple, they were going to stay there, and I said, yeah, great. Got through that whole process. I'm in Westfield, and that permit process was the first eye opener for me, right? We got heavily delayed on that basement, right? And it's just because if you've been to Westfield here recently. The entire city's under construction. They're building everything everywhere, right? So it's just part of what it was. Learned a lot on that first project, but since then, it's been all word of mouth. So my main focus is property management of Central Indiana local. I've had a couple opportunities for these national players that have homes here. I have turned them away. I'm just not really wanting to get back involved in the SFR space. There's just a lot of nuances that go into it, we'll say.
You can check out our full library of episodes wherever you get your podcasts.